Alara leaned against her bedroom window, her breath fogging the glass as she watched. The cats didn't move like animals anymore. They moved like puppets. Their leaps were stiff, their eyes glinting with something unnatural. A chill spread through her chest. Something was wrong in a way that defied reason. From the kitchen, Diane appeared with a tray of brightly colored candies. "Breakfast, my little star," she said warmly. Alara's gaze lingered on the sweets, remembering how the cats had reacted last time. Stiff, hesitant, and strange. A flicker of unease rose. "Mom, these are for me too, right?" she asked cautiously. "Of course, darling. Just a little sweetness to start your day," Diane replied with a smile. Alara forced a smile but felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Her mind raced. Why had the cats moved so oddly before? And if they were affected, what about her? Pretending to be busy at her holodesk, Alara watched the cats approach the treats. Jerky movements, sudden pauses, whiskers trembling. She needed to know. Slowly, she took a sample of candy and retreated to her secret companion, Kiro, a small silvered humanoid robot. Kiro scanned the candy, revealing a subtle cocktail of biological agents, suppressing muscle growth and affecting insulin. Diane was not merely caring, she was controlling, experimenting, and manipulating under the guise of love. Diane returned abruptly. "Alara, my star, what are you doing?" I I was just curious," Alara stammered, tucking the sample away. Diane's smile returned, sharper now. "Curiosity is good, just don't let it get the better of you, my dear." As night fell, Alara lay awake, listening to Cairo and the cats. Every twitch, every pause became a clue. Her mother's love was a labyrinth, and she was trapped. Yet, beneath the fear, a spark of determination glimmered. She would survive, she would understand, and she would uncover the truth. The violet light of Vera Prime seeped through the glass walls as Alara moved silently through the corridors, haunted by images of the cat's jerky, unnatural movements after the sweets. Something in her mother Diane's routines had been revealed, but its full meaning remained elusive. She lingered near the kitchen, watching Diane prepare the candies, every gesture precise, almost ritualistic. The metallic hint she had sensed yesterday returned, a faint warning of invisible control threading through the house. Alara's fingers itched to touch the candy, to confirm her suspicions, but fear held her back. Each smile, each gentle word from Diane felt like a subtle restraint. She realized her life had already been shaped by routines, small assignments, and unseen sensors. The cats approached the treats, their movements jerky and cautious, one pausing mid-step as if listening to something unseen. The truth pressed on her. She was next. Cairo, her small humanoid companion, followed silently, its sensors detecting faint bioactive compounds in the air. Alara brushed a candy with trembling fingers, the metallic tinge undeniable. It wasn't just an experiment, it was control, and she was the subject. She retreated to Cairo, who hummed reassurance. Diane returned, voice smooth but sharp. "Alara, my star, what are you doing?" I I was just looking at the cats," Alara said, forcing a smile. "Curiosity is admirable," Diane said softly, eyes narrowing. "But some truths are heavy." Outwardly obedient, inwardly furious, Alara began to map Diane's routines, the timing of treats, diversions, subtle monitoring, all pointing to the same conclusion. Her mother's love was a cage built of chemicals, routines, and manipulation. At night, Alara ventured into the hidden lab. Vials shimmered with unnatural liquids. Diane's control was invasive, experimental. A step echoed, the smooth, deliberate approach of Diane. "Ilara, you should rest," Diane's voice floated, calm yet cutting. Clutching evidence, Alara felt fear and defiance mix. She would not be passive. She whispered to Kiro, "We need to uncover it all. Every secret." The cats watched silently, eyes reflecting warning, or perhaps alliance. The labyrinth was vast, but Alara had taken her first steps deeper into a world where protection and control dangerously blurred, and as she lay awake that night, she knew the game had begun, and she would not lose. The first rays of Vera Prime's sun filtered into the bedroom, spilling soft gold over the walls. Alara sat up, muscles still stiff from the restless night. Every shadow, every corner of the house felt alive. The house itself seemed to breathe, aware of her thoughts, her curiosity, her defiance. She had spent hours last night mapping Diane's patterns, noting every diversion, every subtle manipulation, every small, almost imperceptible gesture that dictated her life. Today, she decided she would test the boundaries. She would uncover what Diane had been hiding, and not through observation alone. The candies, the cats, the whispered warnings. They all pointed toward one undeniable conclusion. Diane's love was not free. It was conditional, precise, and carefully controlled. As she moved through the corridors, Kiro's sensors flickered softly, providing silent companionship. Alara's eyes drifted toward the cats, who were lounging in the morning light, but still alert, ears twitching and eyes tracking every movement. It was as if they knew she was planning something, as if they were silently judging, waiting. The kitchen smelled faintly sweet, sugary aromas mingling with the sterile scent of chemical compounds. Diane was already there, moving with her usual fluid grace. She looked up, eyes meeting Alara's, a soft smile, warm but cold at the edges. "Good morning, my star," Diane said. "Sleep well?" Alara nodded, hiding the flutter of fear in her chest. Today, there could be no hesitation. She needed answers. When Diane turned her back to retrieve utensils, Alara slipped closer to the candy jar, hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She examined a candy, noting the faint metallic scent lingering on the surface. Kiro scanned it discreetly, relaying subtle readings, bioactive compounds, carefully dosed, designed to influence her metabolism and physical strength. Alara's heart pounded. The truth she had feared was undeniable. Diane was controlling her body, shaping her very existence under the guise of love. "Curiosity is dangerous," Diane said suddenly, voice soft but edged with steel. Alara froze, candy still in hand. Diane had sensed the intrusion, her presence filling the room like a predator closing in on prey. I just wanted to understand," Alara said, voice shaking, though she forced calm. Diane approached, eyes sharp, scanning her daughter's expression, searching for betrayal, for disobedience, for fear. "Understanding comes at a price, my star, and some truths are heavier than you can bear." Alara swallowed, defiance rising alongside fear. "I can bear it." "I need to know." Diane's expression flickered, a softening at first, then a sharpening, the duality of love and control evident in every line of her face. "Very well," she said, finally, in a voice that was both motherly and merciless. "But once you step further, there is no turning back." Alara's mind raced as Diane led her to the hidden lab, a room she had only glimpsed in fragments before. The shelves were lined with vials, instruments, and blinking devices that emitted soft hums. Diane gestured toward a console, revealing a holographic display of charts and data streams. Each line, each curve, told a story of meticulous observation, not just of Alara's actions, but of her very biology, her growth, her responses, her moods. "This is why you have been so different," Diane said softly. "Every choice you make, every feeling you have, is influenced by what I give you. It is for your protection, for your survival. You do not yet understand the dangers outside these walls, the cruelty of the world. But I will ensure you are ready for it. Alara's chest tightened, a swirl of horror and anger mixing with an undeniable sense of betrayal. The candy, the cats, the diversions, they had all been parts of a single plan, a carefully crafted network of control. "You've been shaping me," Alara whispered, voice trembling yet firm, "not for my good, but for yours, for your need to control me." Diane's eyes softened again, the predator momentarily masked by the mother. "I shape you because I love you. But love must sometimes be cruel. Do not mistake my methods for malice." The words struck Alara like a blade. She understood now. The line between protection and control was razor thin, and she had been walking it her entire life without realizing. For a moment, silence filled the room. The hum of devices, the faint stir of the cats, and Cairo's soft vibrations were the only sounds. And then Diane stepped closer, almost closing the distance between them, a gentle hand brushing Alara's cheek, a motherly gesture layered with warning. "You may never understand fully," Diane whispered, "but you must trust me even when you do not." Alara pulled back, eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and determination. "No, I will understand. I will see it all, and I will decide for myself." Diane's smile lingered, enigmatic, a mixture of pride and subtle menace. "So be it," she said softly. "But remember, my star, the labyrinth has many turns, and not all paths lead where you think." Alara's chest heaved as she retreated to her room, clutching Cairo close. Her mind spun with questions, possibilities, and strategies. The truth had begun to reveal itself, but the dangers had also multiplied. Diane's love was a maze, and she was determined to navigate it on her own terms. Outside, the first light of Vera Prime's twin moons shimmered faintly, casting an otherworldly glow through the house. The cats watched her from the shadows, alert and silent, guardians or witnesses. Alara knew one thing with absolute clarity. The path ahead would be fraught with peril, deception, and moral ambiguity. And yet, beneath the fear, a spark of defiance burned bright. She would not be a passive subject in her mother's experiment. She would survive. She would uncover the full truth. And one day, she would decide who she truly was, free from the chains disguised as love. Night draped the house in shadows, the violet light long gone, leaving only the faint hum of machinery and the soft glow of Kiro's sensors. Alara lay in her room, staring at the ceiling, mind racing. She could feel the weight of Diane's gaze, even when the room was empty, the invisible threads of control stretching through every corner of the house. She knew she could not confront her mother directly again, not yet. Diane's presence was both nurturing and menacing, a perfect balance of love and intimidation that left no room for overt rebellion. But Alara had begun to understand the patterns, the rhythms of control, and she knew she could exploit them. She had to. Her freedom, her autonomy, depended on it. The cats watched from the shadows, their glowing eyes like sentinels. Alara whispered to Cairo, "Tonight, we test the boundaries." Carefully. One step at a time, the small humanoid assistant emitted a soft hum in acknowledgement, sensors flickering as it scanned the environment for potential risks. Alara waited until Diane was occupied in the kitchen, her movements precise and deliberate as always, preparing the morning treats. Every detail was familiar, every motion predictable. Alara approached the hidden compartment she had discovered in Part 3, fingers trembling with anticipation. Inside lay another vial, similar to the ones she had seen before, its contents reflecting the dim light with an unnatural shimmer. She examined it, inhaling faint metallic traces. The compound was stronger, more potent, designed for greater influence over her metabolism and neurology. The realization struck her. Diane had been escalating her control, testing boundaries in small increments to shape Alara subtly over time. Alara's chest tightened. Fear clawed at her mind, but determination surged stronger. She carefully replaced the vial with a harmless replica she had constructed with Cairo's help, a mixture that mimicked the appearance but contained no active compounds. It was a small victory, but a significant one. The first tangible step toward reclaiming agency in a house designed to strip it away. Diane entered the corridor suddenly, sensing the shift in energy. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, met Alara's. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice soft yet edged with caution. Alara straightened, heart pounding, and said nothing. Silence stretched between them, heavy and electric. Diane studied her for a long moment, then turned, leaving without comment. It was a subtle acknowledgement, a test perhaps, or maybe a warning. Emboldened by this minor success, Alara began observing more keenly, noting patterns she had missed before. The timing of meals, the rotations of the cats, even the flicker of Kiro's sensors, every detail contributed to a larger picture. She began to see the logic behind Diane's control, the predictable patterns she could manipulate to her advantage. Hours passed, the night deepening into near silence. Alara moved like a shadow, tracing every corner, checking the vials, the devices, and the logs stored in the humanoid assistants. Each discovery added clarity, but also danger. She could feel Diane's awareness, a subtle energy that seemed to permeate the house. Any mistake could expose her, and she knew the consequences could be severe. The cats shifted, one brushing against her leg, another crouching low, watching intently. Their behavior was different tonight, more alert, as if signaling caution. Alara understood. They were indicators, silent warnings of her mother's subtle control, yet also companions in her small acts of defiance. Finally, Alara approached the main console in the lab, where data streams tracked her movements, physiological readings, and even minor behavioral anomalies. She paused, taking a deep breath. With Kiro's assistance, she began to manipulate the readings, subtly masking her deviations, creating the illusion of compliance while she continued her quiet rebellion. A sudden sound, a soft footstep, careful and deliberate, froze her in place. Diane had returned, and the air thickened with tension. Alara held her breath, mind racing, heart pounding, as Diane's gaze swept across the lab. The silence between them was electric, the unspoken challenge clear. One misstep could unravel everything, but Alara did not falter. She held Diane's gaze steadily, a spark of defiance burning in her chest. She would not be subdued by love disguised as control. Not anymore. Diane's lips curved into a subtle smile, enigmatic and layered with warning. "You are learning, my star," she whispered, soft enough that only Alara could hear. "But remember, some lessons come at a cost." Alara exhaled slowly, a mixture of relief and tension washing over her. She had survived this trial, but the stakes had never been higher. Every small victory brought new danger, and she understood that the labyrinth Diane had constructed was vast and merciless. As the night deepened, Alara returned to her room, Cairo quietly following. She looked at the cats, their glowing eyes fixed on her, and whispered, "We're just getting started." "We'll see this through outside." The twin moons of Vera Prime cast a faint, silver glow over the house, illuminating the shadows, highlighting the tension, and marking the beginning of a new chapter in Ilara's fight for autonomy. The game was far from over. The labyrinth awaited, and she was ready to navigate it. The first light of Vera Prime's sun painted the walls of the house in a soft, almost deceptive glow. Ilara moved silently through the corridors, each shadow a potential witness, each sound a possible warning. The tension from previous nights had sharpened her senses. She noticed the faint hum of devices, the subtle shifts in the air, and even the cat's silent, watchful presence. Today, she needed answers that observation alone could not provide. Diane's methods had grown bolder, more invasive. The candies, the devices, the constant monitoring, it was no longer subtle. Ilara realized that remaining passive would mean surrendering not only her freedom, but her very sense of self. She entered the hidden lab once more, Kiro's sensors lighting the space with a soft hum. Vials lined the shelves, some familiar, others new, containing compounds whose purpose she could only guess. Charts and readings on the holographic console displayed her own life as data points. Heart rate, metabolism, minor behavioral anomalies, all meticulously recorded. A surge of determination overtook her fear. The house had been a labyrinth of control, but now she had a map. She carefully examined one of the new vials, the metallic scent stronger than before. Her pulse quickened. This was beyond mere control. It was a direct attempt to shape her biology, to influence her very decisions. Suddenly, a subtle click echoed in the lab. Diane had returned, her presence immediate and undeniable. "Ilara," she said softly, yet the underlying steel in her voice made the air shiver. "You're venturing further than I expected." Ilara swallowed hard, but did not retreat. "I need to understand, Mother. I need to see it all." Diane's eyes narrowed, a flicker of both admiration and caution crossing her features. "Some truths are dangerous. Knowledge comes with a price." Without another word, Diane turned, leaving the lab, the tension lingering like a storm about to break. Ilara exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the house's scrutiny lift for just a moment. She had a plan. Over the next hours, she moved with precision, guided by Cairo's subtle signals. She cross-referenced the vials, checked the logs, and noted the patterns of Diane's monitoring. Each step she took was calculated, minimizing risk while maximizing understanding. By the afternoon, she had mapped nearly every routine, every device, every subtle trigger Diane used to maintain control. But understanding alone was not enough. Ilara realized that to reclaim her autonomy, she needed to act. The next candy batch was due. She waited, tense, every muscle coiled like a spring. When Diane stepped away, she replaced the active vials with inert replicas, a delicate operation that required both skill and nerve. The cats watched silently, their green eyes gleaming in the dim light. When Diane returned, she sensed immediately that something had changed. Her gaze swept the lab, lingering on the altered vials. A thin smile curved her lips. "Clever," she murmured, "but you are only beginning to understand the depths of what you face." The words sent a shiver down Ilara's spine. She had won a small victory, but Diane's love was still a cage, gilded and intricate. She knew the mother would adapt, would escalate, and that the next confrontation would be even more dangerous. As night fell, Ilara retreated to her room, mind racing. She reviewed every detail, every step, every subtle clue that could guide her next moves. The house was quiet, but the hum of the devices and the soft, watching eyes of the cats reminded her that danger was never far. She whispered to Cairo, "We're just scratching the surface. We need to go deeper. The labyrinth isn't finished with us yet." Outside, the twin moons of Vera Prime cast a silver glow over the house. Shadows stretched long and ominous across the walls, hinting at secrets still hidden, dangers yet to come. Alara's resolve hardened. She would not be controlled. She would not be molded. She would navigate the maze Diane had created, uncover every secret, and reclaim herself, no matter the cost. And somewhere in the distance, Diane watched, her presence unseen but palpable, aware that the game had changed. The escalation had begun, and the path forward would be more perilous than ever. The house was unusually silent that morning, the violet light of Vera Prime casting a fragile glow through the corridors. Alara moved with a heightened sense of awareness. Every sound, every shadow seemed amplified, almost alive. The previous nights had revealed only fragments of Diane's control. Today, she was determined to confront the truth head-on. She approached the hidden lab, her heart pounding, Cairo floating silently by her side. The devices hummed faintly, as if anticipating her arrival. Vials shimmered on the shelves, their contents reflecting the soft morning light, each one a symbol of Diane's meticulous manipulation. Alara's eyes fell on a small drawer she had never noticed before. Her hands shook slightly as she opened it, revealing a set of files and data tablets. The holographic interface flickered to life under her touch, displaying charts, logs, and notes. The sheer scale of Diane's observations hit her like a wave. Every movement, every heartbeat, every minor deviation from routine had been cataloged, measured, and analyzed. Her stomach twisted. This was not protection. This was domination disguised as care. The realization cut deeper than any confrontation could. The vials, the candies, the cats, they were all part of an elaborate system designed to control her, to mold her body and mind according to Diane's design. A sudden sound made her freeze. Diane was in the doorway, her expression calm but unreadable. "I see you've found my archives," she said softly, almost mournfully. "Curiosity can be dangerous, my star. Do you truly want to understand?" Alara swallowed her fear, meeting her mother's gaze. "I need to. I deserve to know the truth." Diane stepped aside, gesturing toward the console. "Then you shall. But remember, the truth is not always comforting. It can burn, it can wound, and it can destroy illusions you've held dear." Alara began scrolling through the records. Every entry, every chart told a story of control. Diane had monitored her metabolic responses, her emotional states, her minor defiance, everything meticulously logged. And at the center of it all, a revelation. Diane had escalated the potency of the candies over time, carefully calibrating them to ensure dependency, subtly suppressing her physical strength, heightening compliance, and shaping emotional reactions. Alara's chest tightened. The mother she had once trusted implicitly had created a system designed to bind her will, to dictate her choices under the guise of protection. Rage and betrayal surged through her. "You've been experimenting on me," Alara whispered, voice trembling yet fierce. "All of this, it's not love, it's control. And it's been happening my entire life." Diane's eyes softened, the warmth of maternal affection flickering amidst the cold precision of her control. "You misunderstand. I love you beyond measure. Everything I have done, every step, every measure was to shield you from a world that would harm you. To prepare you." Alara shook her head, tears threatening to spill. Preparation? By making me sick? By chaining me without my knowledge? That's not love. That's possession. Diane stepped closer, her voice gentle but firm. Possession? Perhaps, but love and possession are often intertwined, especially when the stakes are survival. You may see cruelty, but it was calculated for your safety. Alara's mind raced. The labyrinth Diane had constructed was larger, more intricate than she had imagined. She realized that any overt rebellion could trigger unforeseen consequences, yet inaction guaranteed slow erosion of her autonomy. The cats stirred, shifting silently as if sensing the tension between mother and daughter. Kiro hovered near, emitting a low hum of support. Alara knew she could not rely solely on anger or defiance. She needed a plan, strategy, a way to reclaim her freedom without triggering Diane's immediate retaliation. Hours passed in tense silence. Alara studied the logs, memorizing routines, noting vulnerabilities, and identifying patterns in Diane's monitoring. Every discovery fueled her resolve. She understood now that Diane's love was both shield and chain, that the same hands which comforted also controlled, and that navigating this labyrinth required both courage and cunning. Diane finally broke the silence, her voice soft and deliberate. You see the scope now. And yet, my star, do you understand why I acted as I did? Can you see the dangers that lie beyond these walls, the threats you cannot yet comprehend? Alara looked up, eyes blazing. I see danger, yes, but not from the world outside. The danger has been here, in this house, in the form of hidden manipulations and control. I understand now, Mother. I see the truth, and I will not be bound by it any longer. Diane's lips curved into a faint, enigmatic smile. Then the game truly begins. You have seen part of the maze, but there are corridors yet unexplored, traps yet undiscovered. Step carefully, my star. Freedom comes at a price. Alara's chest heaved, determination and fear intertwining. She knew Diane's love was a double-edged sword, her mother's devotion both protection and peril. Yet, for the first time, she felt the spark of genuine autonomy. She would navigate the labyrinth. She would uncover every secret. And she would emerge on her own terms. The violet light dimmed as Vera Prime's day faded, casting long shadows across the house. Diane's presence lingered, silent and omnipresent, a constant reminder that freedom would not come easily. Alara retreated to her room, mind racing, strategy forming, knowing that the path forward was more dangerous than ever. Outside, the twin moons cast a cold, silver glow, illuminating the corridors like silent witnesses. The cats observed from their hidden perches, their eyes glimmering with inscrutable intelligence. Alara understood one undeniable truth. The true challenge was only beginning. The maze was vast, the stakes high, and the line between love and control razor thin. And as she lay awake that night, every nerve alert, she whispered to herself and to Cairo, I will not be trapped. I will see it through, no matter the cost. The house was steeped in silence, every corner alert, every shadow tense. Alara moved through the corridors with careful precision, mind sharp and deliberate. The knowledge she had uncovered over the past days weighed heavily on her, but it also fueled her determination. Diane's control had been meticulous, invasive, yet now that she understood its breadth, she could begin to fight back. Kiro hovered near her shoulder, sensors softly pulsing, offering guidance and real-time analysis. The cats trailed silently, their glowing eyes fixed on her as though approving her plan. Tonight, she would test Diane's limits, not with reckless confrontation, but with calculated steps. Subtle manipulations, small disruptions, tiny acts of rebellion that could slowly undermine the system Diane had built around her. She approached the kitchen where the candy preparation routine had already begun. The metallic scent of the active compounds lingered faintly in the air. Alara's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with the thrill of strategy. With careful hands, she swapped the potent candies with inert replicas she had crafted, ensuring that Diane's subtle influence over her body and mind would be reduced. Every movement was deliberate, measured. Diane entered the corridor at just that moment, sensing the shift in energy. Her gaze swept the room, piercing and calculating. "Interesting," she murmured, a faint smile playing at her lips. "I see you are experimenting. But be careful. Experimentation can have consequences." Alara met her mother's eyes steadily. "I need to understand. I need to act." Diane's expression remained calm, almost unreadable, but a spark of something, curiosity, perhaps even respect, flickered across her features. "Very well. But remember, the house sees all, hears all, and some knowledge can be dangerous." Undeterred, Alara moved to the hidden lab, scanning every vial, every device, every log. She had discovered weak points, minor oversights in Diane's otherwise meticulous system. The realization filled her with a cautious confidence. Control was never absolute. There was always a way to exploit patterns, to create small pockets of freedom, to reclaim pieces of autonomy. As the hours passed, she made incremental adjustments, slightly altering sensor readings, creating minor delays in routines, masking deviations with Kiro's assistance. Each small act of defiance carried risk, yet each one also strengthened her sense of agency. The house seemed to shift subtly around her, as if reacting to her newfound assertiveness. But then a subtle vibration underfoot made her freeze. Diane was not just observing from afar, she was present, aware, tracking every deviation. "You are clever," Diane said softly, her voice slicing through the tension. "I see you understand more than I anticipated. But knowledge alone does not grant freedom. Action does, and every action has a cost." Alara's chest tightened, a mixture of fear and exhilaration surging within her. She knew that the next steps would be critical. One miscalculation could expose everything, but inaction guaranteed the continuation of Diane's manipulation. The cats shifted, their eyes glowing in the dim light, silent witnesses to the unfolding struggle. Kiro's hum offered reassurance, a reminder that she was not entirely alone in this labyrinth of control. Alara steeled herself, knowing that tonight marked a turning point. She began to move systematically, testing Diane's responses, noting subtle changes in behavior, minor adjustments in routines, and the thresholds of her mother's vigilance. Each discovery was a step toward understanding the full scope of Diane's control and ultimately how to dismantle it. Hours turned into night, shadows stretching long and ominous. Alara paused in the central corridor, taking a deep breath, and whispered to Kiro, "We've begun. Every step from here counts. One misstep, and the house will strike back. But we move forward anyway." Outside, the twin moons of Vera Prime cast a cold, silver glow, illuminating the house like a silent observer of the battle unfolding within. Diane watched from a distance, her presence palpable, her gaze sharp and unwavering. She knew her daughter was no longer a passive subject. The game had changed. The stakes were higher, the tension more acute, and the path forward far more dangerous than ever before. Alara returned to her room briefly, reviewing every observation, every minor victory, and preparing for the next phase of her rebellion. The labyrinth Diane had constructed was vast, intricate, and treacherous, but she would navigate it. Step by step, secret by secret, she would reclaim herself. And as she lay awake that night, heart racing, she whispered once more to Cairo and to herself, "This is only the beginning. The rebellion has started, and I will not falter." The twin moons of Vera Prime cast a cold, silver glow across the house, illuminating shadows that seemed to move with a life of their own. Alara walked silently through the corridors, each step precise, her mind sharpened by the discoveries of the past days. Tonight, she would escalate her plan. No more minor manipulations. The labyrinth Diane had built would face its first real challenge. Kiro floated beside her, sensors flickering softly, analyzing every pattern, every possible risk. The cats trailed silently, their eyes gleaming, almost approving of the boldness that had replaced Alara's cautious vigilance. In the hidden lab, vials shimmered in the dim light. Some were familiar. Others contained compounds Alara had not yet studied. Each one represented a thread of control Diane had woven around her life. But now, armed with knowledge, Alara could turn the threads back toward herself. She approached the candy preparation area where Diane had already begun her meticulous routine. The familiar metallic scent hung in the air. Alara's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with resolve. With careful precision, she began replacing the active vials with inert replicas she had prepared, neutralizing the compounds that subtly manipulated her body. But tonight, she would take it further. Using Kiro's assistance, Alara modified a separate set of compounds intended for Diane herself, a measure calculated to limit Diane's mobility and speech without causing permanent harm, keeping her effectively under Alara's watch within the house. This was a delicate operation. Any mistake could expose her plan. Diane entered the room silently, her sharp gaze instantly assessing the subtle shifts in energy. "Alara," she said softly, her tone calm but carrying a dangerous edge. "I see you are venturing into territory you do not fully understand." Alara met her mother's eyes, unwavering. "I understand enough," she said firmly, "and I will not be manipulated any longer." Tonight, things change. For a moment, Diane said nothing. Then, almost imperceptibly, a flicker of recognition crossed her features. Perhaps respect, perhaps wariness. "Very well," she whispered, "but remember, control is not easily surrendered and freedom often comes at a cost." Alara continued, moving with methodical precision. Each vial was swapped, each sensor carefully adjusted. Diane's reactions were minimal at first, subtle, almost imperceptible. But gradually, the effects began to take hold. Her mother's movements slowed, her speech became fragmented, and her presence, once a commanding force throughout the house, was now restricted, confined to her room, and dependent on Alara's careful oversight. The house felt different. Shadows seemed to hesitate, the hum of devices shifting subtly in response to the new balance of power. Alara could feel the weight of authority settling onto her shoulders, heavy, yet exhilarating. Diane tried to speak, but her words faltered. Her eyes widened, registering both comprehension and a trace of fear. "Alara, what have you done?" she whispered, her voice weak, almost a plea. "I've reclaimed what was mine," Alara said quietly but firmly. "I won't be controlled." "Not anymore. But I won't harm you, just as you never truly harmed me physically. This is balance." Diane's lips curved into a faint, almost sad smile, layered with complexity. So the student becomes the keeper, she murmured. I underestimated you. The house, the labyrinth, it has shifted indeed. Alara's heart pounded, a mixture of triumph and unease swirling within her. She had gained control, yes, but the cost was visible in Diane's weakened form, in the quiet tension that filled the house. The labyrinth had been partially dismantled, yet every corner still held secrets, traps, and the remnants of Diane's pervasive influence. As night deepened, Alara retreated to her room, Kiro following silently, and the cats perched on windowsills, their eyes glowing like tiny beacons. She reviewed every detail, every adjustment, every small victory, knowing that Diane's awareness might still linger in subtle, unpredictable ways. Outside, the twin moons reflected off the house's metallic surfaces, casting long, ominous shadows. Alara whispered to herself and to Cairo, "The tables have turned, but the maze is not yet fully mapped. We're not done, not by far." And somewhere in the house, Diane remained, restrained but aware, her mind racing, her pride bruised, and the subtle tension between mother and daughter now charged with new, dangerous possibilities. The stage was set for the final reckoning. The first light of Vera Prime's sun slanted through the windows, pale and cold, illuminating the house that had become both a prison and a battlefield. Alara stood in the central corridor, surveying the environment she had meticulously reshaped over the past nights. Diane remained in her room, physically restrained, limited in speech, yet her presence was still formidable, a reminder of both the love and control that had dominated Alara's life. Alara's chest tightened as she considered what had led them here. Every observation, every subtle rebellion, every carefully calculated risk had culminated in this moment. Yet, despite the victory, a lingering unease remained. The labyrinth was not just a house filled with vials, devices, and cats. It was a web of emotional stakes, a battlefield of trust, love, and betrayal. Kiro floated silently at her side, its sensors analyzing every movement, every potential hazard. The cats moved like shadows along the walls, their eyes glimmering with inscrutable intelligence. The house seemed to hold its breath. Alara approached Diane's room, her steps careful yet purposeful. "Mother," she said, her voice steady but layered with emotion, "we've reached the end of this game. The control, the manipulation, it stops here." Diane's eyes, still sharp despite her weakened state, met Ilara's. There was a flicker of pride, of recognition, but also a trace of sorrow. "You have learned well," she whispered, "perhaps too well. But remember, freedom is not without cost." Alara nodded, understanding more than words could convey. The cost was evident, not only in the subtle tremor of Diane's hands, not only in the residual tension that filled the air, but in the transformation of their relationship. They were no longer mother and passive daughter. They were adversaries, survivors, two forces testing the boundaries of loyalty, trust, and autonomy. With deliberate care, Alara maintained Diane's comfort while keeping her restricted, ensuring no permanent harm. Every adjustment was precise: food, hydration, and monitoring carefully managed. The mother who had once controlled every aspect of Alara's body and mind was now dependent on her daughter, a reversal that carried a profound emotional weight. Diane broke the silence, her voice faint but clear. "You have turned the tables. But tell me, my star, what will you do with this power? Will you forgive? Will you protect? Or will the cycle of control continue in another form?" Alara paused, absorbing the question. Her mind raced, weighing the consequences of each choice. She could assert absolute authority, dominating Diane fully, or she could exercise restraint, redefining their relationship in a fragile, tentative balance of trust and vigilance. Finally, she spoke, voice firm yet imbued with compassion. I will not become you. I will not control out of fear or possessiveness, but I will protect myself, and I will make sure that the past does not repeat itself. Diane's lips curved into a faint, almost approving smile, tinged with sadness. Then perhaps there is hope, she whispered, even in this maze we have built. The house remained still, shadows stretching long across walls and floors, witnesses to a delicate equilibrium that had been achieved. The cats settled quietly, their eyes following every subtle movement, while Cairo hovered attentively, ensuring all systems remained stable. For the first time, Alara felt a cautious sense of freedom. Not absolute freedom. There were still restrictions, still responsibilities, still emotional scars, but autonomy. She had reclaimed herself, reshaped the labyrinth, and established the boundaries that Diane had never allowed. Outside, the twin moons of Vera Prime glimmered faintly, casting a soft, serene light over the house. The air held a calm tension, a mixture of relief and anticipation, as if the universe itself acknowledged the delicate balance now established between mother and daughter. Alara turned to Diane, her eyes steady, her voice gentle. We will rebuild. Together, if you can trust me. Separately, if you cannot. But we will endure. And I will live my life. My way. Diane nodded slowly, a tear tracing her cheek. Your way. Perhaps it is better than mine. And in that moment, the labyrinth that had been a prison, a battleground, and a theater of secrets and manipulation transformed into a place of cautious understanding. The battle was over, the danger mitigated, and the story of control, love, and rebellion had reached its emotional, moral conclusion. Alara closed the door gently, standing for a moment in the corridor, listening to the faint hum of life within the house. She knew challenges remained, that the scars of manipulation and secrecy would linger, but she had survived, outsmarted, and reclaimed autonomy in a way that Diane could neither take from her nor undo. The twin moons of Vera Prime faded as the sun rose fully, a symbol of new beginnings, of liberation, and of consequences accepted. And in the quiet, Alara whispered, not only to herself, but to the universe, to Cairo, and even to Diane. This is my life now. I am free.